welcome to the concluding event of our Hugh Hewitt Homecoming Day. We're so thrilled to have so many of you here this evening for a very special evening. My name is Greg Schaller, and I'm the director of Centennial Institute here at Colorado Christian University. If I tell you what we put Hugh Hewitt through today, you wouldn't believe it. Breakfast this morning, a podcast interview, another interview with Will Armstrong, a luncheon, 2 hours of broadcasting, and now we're putting you through this. You've been a real trooper, Hugh, so thank you so much. I was thinking about we might have to set up an IV and just pump caffeine through him for a good part of the day. As we do with all of our events here at CCU, we'll begin with prayer, so I'd invite Calvin Schmidt, one of our great CCU students, to join me here and offer an invocation.
Please bow your heads with me. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for being with us together this evening, and this awesome opportunity to learn and to share in conversation. We pray that our time tonight would honor and glorify you, strengthen us in our convictions as we face a challenging world, and guide Hugh as he shares his insights on the modern conservative movement and speaks boldly in pursuit of truth. And Lord, give him energy with this crazy day. May our discussions be thoughtful, encouraging, and rooted in wisdom. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
And now we'll have the national anthem from our amazing choral group, Peak Harmony, led by David Neal. Please stand.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, though but bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land, o'er the land, o'er the land of the free, and the home of the brave.
Thank you so much. That was just amazing. At lunch today, President Hogue asked a group of us, our sort of CCU story, what we think of when we think of CCU. I got cut off, so I wasn't allowed to give my answer. There's two things that I think of all the time about CCU. Both of them were initiated by President Armstrong, but thankfully they've been faithfully maintained by President Hogue. The first is, Bill always said, CCU takes its middle name seriously. We are a Christian university, and we are committed to that, and we are faithful to that. And the other is the strategic priorities that this university stands for. When my wife says when I had my first midlife crisis back in 2008 and was looking for a different job, she found CCU, and she said, this university was made for you. Because the things that I truly believed, that I thought were extremely important, were things that this university also stood for. And again, I am most grateful that President Hogue has maintained a faithfulness to these, and he's committed to these things. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to work with you and for your leadership of this university. Please join me in welcoming President Hogue to the stage.
Thank you. I didn't know you get two midlife crises. So I just learned that. Tammy, beware, beware. There may be one coming. Let me do this. It has been an amazing, long day today, and there's been a lot of people who have worked long hours. And so I'd like to recognize them. First of all, Greg Schaller, Jamie Erker, and Centennial Institute. What a job. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Vice President Daniel Labrie and all of Advancement and your team, let's give them a round of applause. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Where is Carrie Ann Newton? Stand up, Carrie Ann Newton, and stay right there. Stay right there. And where is Ty Heckelman? Ty Heckelman. Ty, would you please stand up? These two are the brain trust of the Office of the President, and they have done an amazing job today. Thank you. Thank you both. And my bride has come and gone and come and gone like every First Lady does when there's a big event on campus. Would you please welcome the love of my life, my better two-thirds, Tammy. Would you stand and say hi? Thank you. Thank you, baby. Thank you. You know, I'm going to take some liberty tonight. I like to ad-lib, but to introduce our keynote address and our friend and our alum from CCU, if you don't mind, I'm going to read from a prepared script because I've known Hugh for about 26, 28 years. It's been a long day, and we're a little worn in the activity, and you'll hear it in the voice, a little bit long in the voice, but I want to make sure that what I wrote on these pages comes across clearly, Hugh, because you are more than a friend, and you're more than a brother. You've been an example to me and to many for a number of years. And so I want to introduce you properly, my friend. So allow me to admit something right from the start, a simple truth that colors everything I say this evening in this introduction. I cannot introduce this man with impartial detachment. I like him, I love him, I am a Hugh Hewitt fan. And I've been a Hugh Hewitt fan for a long time. You can give him a round of applause, yes, a long time. I have known Hugh Hewitt for more than 2 decades. OH, there you go. We labored together in the vineyards of Salem Broadcasting for over 20 years, and for more than 10 of those years, I had the privilege and the recurring anxiety, Hugh, on occasion of sitting in for you as a guest host from Sacramento, California. You learned a great deal, at least I did, about a man when you are trusted to speak for him in his absence. Think about that. It's Hugh's show. It's a national show. I'm just a local guy in Sacramento. And he gives me the microphone, and I need to represent everything that Hugh Hewitt would represent. I would tell Dwayne all the time, Generalissimo, I'm just minding the house. I'm not changing the carpet. I promise you. It'll stay the same. And so when you're trusted to speak for Hugh in his absence, you feel it. And you learn even more about yourself when you realize week after week that his listeners are far more informed than you expected and considerably less patient with anything but their lovable host when you make a mistake, and I made a few. But that was good for me. It was good. It was rigor for me. It's what we do with our students here. We want them challenged to the benchmark of failure so you can mark that failure and have a benchmark and grow from that point forward. So let me say this at the outset. Everything I'm about to tell you, I believe with the conviction of a friend here tonight, a colleague and a fellow traveler, not merely as a matter of professional duty or professional courtesy, although it is that and more. Hugh Hewitt was born in Warren, Ohio. I mention that not simply because of a biographical fact, although it is, but as a matter of shared identity. Because I, too, am an expatriate of the great state of Ohio. And there is a particular bond that forms between those of us who grew up cheering for teams that have, on numerous occasions, tested the theological virtue of hope for years and years. We are both devoted and long-suffering fans of the Cleveland Browns. I pause for laughter. The Indians and the Guardians, who give us hope and then steal it in a Game 7. The Cavaliers, and with full fervor and the tradition that it demands in Ohio, the Ohio State Buckeyes. I assure you, our friendship was sealed not merely in the green rooms of conservative media events, although we were in numerous green rooms at media events and pundits and campaign stumps and debates. And it wasn't just in those events, it was in the sacred fellowship of Ohio fandom. You know, there's still a fall afternoon where I'm watching a football game and the Buckeyes just finish and that team from up north begins and I'm texting Hugh or I'm doing something on Twitter just to get him out of the mat. And we engage in that conversation. So when you're an Ohio fan, it requires a man to believe deeply in things that are not yet seen. And so I share that with my brother Hugh. A little bit about Hugh. He's an honor graduate of Harvard College, University of Michigan Law School graduate, of which is his carnal sin, and I do forgive him for that fact. If you're a Buckeye, that's Tetonville. But of course, Hugh graduated with honors at U of M. He clerked on the United States Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit, served 6 years in the Reagan administration as an assistant counsel in the White House, special assistant to 2 attorney general, and as a Senate-confirmed deputy director of the Office of Personnel Management. He served as the founding executive director of the Richard Nixon Presidential Library. His close ties with the Nixon administration and Hugh Hewitt. He has been a tenured professor of constitutional law at Chapman University's Fowler School of Law for 30 years. He is the author of 14 books, 2 of them New York Times bestsellers, and they are terrific, as are the other 12. He received 3 Emmy Awards for his work as co-host of PBS's program Life and Times when I first met him. When I said, "Who is this Hugh Hewitt guy from Ohio?" and I watched the show. Conceived and hosted the PBS series Searching for God in America. Doing this on PBS, did I say that once or twice? And winning Emmys. Has conducted more than 25,000 interviews. I researched this on Perplexity. I think that's low. There are more than 25,000 interviews in your Rolodex. Across a quarter century of broadcasting, it reaches more than 2 million listeners weekly on the Salem Radio Network. Hugh Hewitt. Now I want to say something that the biography alone cannot carry. Hugh and I have shared more than an employer and a home state. We share a worldview, a conservative worldview that is rooted not in grievance but in gratitude. He taught me that. Not in reaction but in principle, in intellect. You taught me that. A conservative ideology formed by faith and by history, by a genuine love of this country and its founding documents, Hugh. We share that. I'm a student of that. Hugh describes himself on air with the wit that makes him so dangerous to categorize, and I love this. He's an evangelical Roman Catholic Presbyterian, and I think you toss in Lutheran for good measure, right? But here's the best part. I understand everything he means when he says that. It is the declaration of a man whose faith is too serious to be reduced to a label, whose intellectual life is too honest to be captured by a tribe. And it is that conviction, that faith-informed, principle-anchored seriousness that has defined Hugh's voice in a media world that has made such intelligent seriousness increasingly rare and increasingly costly. In a landscape that rewards volume or banging pots and pans or making noise over substance, outrage over analysis, he has done something genuinely countercultural. He has remained serious, he has remained brilliant, and he has remained believable. For more than 2 decades, he has been one of the most consistent voices in conservative media for genuine intellectual rigor, for going back to the primary sources, for reading the original documents and our founding fathers, for conducting the kind of deep, sustained, substantive conversation that talk radio and podcasts were made capable of offering to the populace and have so rarely done, Hugh. What makes that record remarkable is not simply the standard Hugh has kept, but the headwinds he has kept it against. He has held that line through the rise of Trump, through the coarsening of our political discourse, through the steady migration of conservative audiences toward platforms that traffic in emotional intensity rather than careful thought. He has held it through a media environment that has made the kind of conservative ideology that Hugh represents, a laughingstock in some cases, but in Hugh's direction, an ideology that is learned and principled and deadly serious and increasingly difficult to sustain in the face of the criticism that is constantly thrown its way. This is not a small thing. In my experience, it's a far easier ability to lower your standard than defend it. You have never done that. And to be far more profitable to tell people what they want to hear versus what they need to hear, and you have never done that. He was chosen the harder path for 20 years. I've watched him do it up close. All I have to say is you've never flinched once. You, not once. So ladies and gentlemen, he is my brother from another Ohio mother. He is a partner in sports stubbornness, my partner in conservative ideology and conviction. He loves Jesus, I love Jesus, and we love each other. My good friend of more than 20 years. Would you please welcome the Honorable Hugh Hewitt tonight.
That was very kind. Well, thank you. You know, earlier today, Greg just raked me over the coals when he introduced me. And then I come into that wonderful introduction from Eric, who has indeed been my friend for more than a quarter century, as has Tammy. And I'm so glad that the First Lady of Colorado Christian University came back tonight. Thank you, Tammy. You didn't have to do that. The boss did, but you didn't have to do that. I appreciate that. I want to first say from Jamie to Greg to all of my old friends in the audience, it is good to be back home. I saw the branding, homecoming, for half a semester, or for half a year. I would troop over to the studio that Bill Armstrong built for me, and with the help of the assistant students that we broadcast here for 4 months in that most unusual year of 2015. But I thought I would begin by saying, since President Hoag's invitation, I've gone back and forth on topics. That's why it says a flock of black swans, because it's really 5 different topics into one talk, and I will not make it 5 talks, I promise. I thought at the beginning I would just do the call and response with Eric, OH. So we could just do that all night and educate some of you. But we really are serious about this Buckeye stuff. My youngest son's middle name is Ohio, and that's because I married a California girl, and I knew he was never going to live in Ohio, and he hasn't. But I've turned them into Browns fans. And so it's a curse, and it goes down with the family. But then I thought, since I taught con law for undergraduates when I was here in 2015, I would do an update on what has changed so dramatically with the addition of 3 Trump justices to the Supreme Court. Everything is turning over. And I have to actually redo the courts for the first time in years. I'm taking a year off, sabbatical, because I have to redo the entire course, because the court has overturned the rule of the road to the good, to the great good. In that year in the assistant counsel's office in the White House, I shared a suite with a pretty smart guy whose name is Roberts, and he's now the Chief Justice. So I had nothing to do, because when there was something hard to do, the boss, Fred Fielding, would bring it down, and he would give it to John. So I would protect the seal of the Presidency of the United States. But I know good lawyering, and I know good professoring, and that's a great Supreme Court. Then, of course, President Trump came back. When we first convened as a student and group here, President Trump was not yet taken seriously by me or by anyone, and I had just joined NBC when Chuck Todd asked me on Meet the Press, does he have the temperament to be president? And I said, absolutely not. And that was the first of many times I was wrong about President Trump. But, of course, he and I have agreed to disagree. I think he lost in 2020. I've had the opportunity to interview him 30 times or ask him questions. We get along quite well. And if I need to talk to him, I can. And if he wants to talk to me, he will. And when you interview him, there's an art. It's sort of like getting a train to stop. And you have to sometimes tie someone on the tracks to do that. And that someone is me. You're Mr. President. And I was going to do that. But I've got a number of Trump tattoos I could tell you about. It's a pretty funny speech because the president is unique. And he is uniquely for this time. Now, we are a nation at war again. I did not intend to be talking when we set this up, that we would be at war. Did not expect that. But I know we've got at least one veteran. How many other veterans are here? Thank you for your service. This morning, we had a young lady, Abby. I think she's a freshman. Her father is deployed to the war zone. Any of you have family in the war zone? Well, our prayers are all together, right? We keep them all together, keep them in our heart. And civilians like me don't really understand the military until you marry into it, as I did, or until your son, son-in-law, and nephew are in it, and then you think about it constantly, and you worry about it differently, and the debt that we owe these people is endless. And so keep them in your prayers every night. 4 American families, now 11 total, have lost their father, mother, brother, sister, son, daughter in just the last 2 weeks, and that's a very tall order, and it will probably get higher. And that's something that we do not take lightly as a country, and I appreciate the national anthem so much more in a time of war. And peak harmony, did I get it right? Most of you would rather I just sit down and let peak harmony come back out here and sing, I know that, but that was amazing. However, events have unfolded since 10/7/23, that when an old and dear friend who has become, by means I could never have imagined, the president of Colorado Christian University, invites me to come and speak at Colorado Christian University after my very long association, which actually goes back to a non-speaking association, because 2 presidents prior, before President Sweeting, Bill Armstrong was your president, and I was a young briefcase carrier in the White House as a young lawyer, and Bill Armstrong and Cap Weinberger, they would roll through. And they would roll through the West Wing, and you'd get out of the way, or they'd be in the mess when you're in the mess, and the kids would shut up, because at that time, before podcasting, your opinion was not interesting nor solicited. You were told what to do and when to do it and when it was needed by, and please don't make any mistakes, and they probably won't use it anyway. But there were giants. Paul Laxalt, Senator Armstrong, Cap Weinberger, there were giants. And the giants roamed around the West Wing, and we were fighting the Soviet Union, and I didn't know that Bill Armstrong would become a friend. But in 2010, 2 years after Sarah Palin lost her bid to become vice president, she headlined a KNUS event. And Eric and I have a dear friend in Dennis Prager, dear friend in Dennis Prager. And he's recovering. He's doing okay. I talked to him 2 weeks ago. He's making it back. It's going to be a long way back, but he's talking again, so he'll live. Since he can talk, he'll live. And he'll be on the air before you know it, and he was the first to tell me that, and I saw him when he couldn't talk, and I thought, oh, this is going to explode, because he might be injured, but he's got to talk, so he's able to talk now. Well, Dennis Prager and I were headlining this event. Bill Armstrong was going to moderate it, and it was downtown, and we had the University of Denver auditorium full, because it was Sarah Palin. And so our marching orders were, Dennis, you get 10 minutes, Hugh, you get 10 minutes, and then Sarah Palin's going to take 20 minutes, and then Bill's going to moderate a discussion for an hour. The math, it's a 2-hour and 10-minute program. Dennis went first and talked for 45 minutes, which we should have foreseen, Eric, right? So I did the right thing. I spoke for 5 minutes, at which point Senator Armstrong, thank you. And we got Governor Palin on, and then we had a wonderful time, but that's when I made the acquaintance of Bill Armstrong. And then, as Eric does, when he sets his sight on something, he decided he was going to get me here. And the means to get me here was the Western Conservative Summit, which is coming back this summer. And I hope you are all here on campus, which is going to be fabulous. Have your nephews, nieces, aunts, uncles, cousins, everybody come, because we really want to restore this to what it was in 2015, which was the place where the Republican Party auditioned its candidates in 2015. But I came back for the first Western Conservative Summit in 2012, and then I came back in 2013 and 14 because Senator Armstrong, working his plan, got to get Hugh to teach at Colorado Christian University, it was his lifeblood, said, come teach the kids, the high school kids. Now, I teach law students. I'm okay with college kids, but law students are a different bunch. They have a metric, they've got to pass a bar. If they don't pass the bar, they don't go to work. So they're in the classroom, and their eyes are on you, and if they're sleepy, they take an extra jolt of Jaffa. But they got to get it done. They got to pass, or they're not. All that money's wasted. So I came here and I said, okay, I'll teach the high school students for you, Senator, because you're Senator Bill Armstrong. And that was 20 hours of education. I think it's 16 this summer for high school students, ages 14 to 17. And it might have been, it was in Lucrino somewhere, I'm sure. And I prepared 20 hours. When you prepare 20 hours, you expect to do 20 hours. And the door knocks, and it's Senator Armstrong, President Armstrong. Hugh, I have to borrow an hour to an hour and a half. Well, okay, why? I got a young kid, I want you to meet him, and in comes Charlie Kirk. So I met Charlie Kirk on this campus when he was 19 years old in the second year of Turning Point. People don't know that Foster Friess and Bill Armstrong, they're the ones. They got it going. He has another mentor in Chicago, and that man's with the Lord too, but those two guys made the weather. And those two guys, Foster wrote the checks, and Bill made the introductions, and Bill gave them a platform. And I've got 40 high school kids, and I see a 19-year-old come in, and I think, this is not going to work. You know, it's a 19-year-old going to talk to him, and blew my socks off. So I was in the back, and I sat there thinking, this is something. But I didn't know how big Charlie was. By the time of his murder, he was a valued colleague. The age disparity is too great for me to call Charlie a friend. And I don't know Erica in the way that I know Tammy and the other hosts in Salem, but he became a Salem host. And Salem hosts, as Eric have noted, we stay in touch with each other, and we argue with each other, and we do it, don't take it outside of the tent, but Charlie and I had our disagreements, and we had our agreements, but I also knew when a comet was coming across the sky, and that's a comet. You know, there was Rush, and then there was Charlie, and there'll be someone else. It's never over. The argument is never over. But Charlie, when he was murdered, I was so stunned that you couldn't go onto a college campus and argue with people without having someone crazy shoot you. By the way, about 3/4 of my events canceled that week. Not because they didn't want to have events, but they couldn't pay the security cost. And I don't blame them, because the insurers did not want to have speakers on college campuses anymore. And that's fine. We're at a place in the world now that places like CCU still does the Western Conservative Summit, still bears the cost of security. Those of you who are not donors, please step up and make sure that we can keep doing that, because we have to keep doing this, and we have to keep doing it for the next generation. But one of the things that happened since Charlie was murdered is a debate over whether or not Charlie was pro-Israel, because Candace Owen has been arguing that he wasn't, and Charlie was. And Candace has got theories. I've only met Candace once. I don't know her. I don't know what's wrong with her. Her treatment of Erica is terrible and objectively unchristian-like, objectively condemnatory behavior. So, but what I really Charlie was very pro-Israel, and there was not an anti-Semitic bone in his body. He was of the earth, saved by Christ, and becoming more of an evangelist than he was political pundit by the time he was murdered. So there was this transformation. So the devil always takes out the problem. They let me go on. The problem, Charlie, he had to be taken out. And what Charlie lived for and died a martyr's death for was for some certain truths. So I want to make the case tonight for two things: why we are pro-Israel and why we cannot tolerate anti-Semitism. And that's what I told Eric I was going to do at a Christian college, so I could tell people at a Christian college, because every Christian institution has to adopt these points of view. And these points of view are, it's not a theological argument. Right? I want to stress that. There might be some of you who support Israel because of theology. And I'm not here to argue with you. That's inappropriate. That's appropriate for many people. It's not the reason I support Israel, the reason that I am anti-Semitic. Charlie was also an autodidact of the first order, so we can all learn what we may not know and what you might hear a little bit about today. Great book by Barry Strauss of Hoover came out this year, The Jews versus Rome, which I would recommend to any of you who are interested in the ancient history of Israel as proven by the archaeology of the land and by the first primary sources of which Eric made mention. But Charlie was a strong supporter of our ally, not for theological reasons, but for reasons I think I share and I want to spell out to you. Number one, because I believe in our Constitution and the lawmaking authority it endows upon our Congress, I believe that Israel is our ally. Number two, our rule of law tradition means that once we have begun to rely upon a rule of law, we have to continue to rely upon that rule of law, and we don't break with it easily or absent some sort of crisis in which the body politic speaks, and we have had no reason to do that with Israel. 3, it is in our national self-interest that Israel remain our greatest ally. I've always used the phraseology, the equal of any ally until this war. Now they are our greatest ally, and I will expand on that in a little bit. And then finally, about anti-Semitism, our common decency and our founding documents dictate that all men are created equal, all faith traditions are to be treated the same under the Free Expression Clause, and that we are obliged to make sure that those who stand up and curse the Jews are cursed because of that, because it's un-American to be anti-Semitic. Simply put, and without objection. Now, those theological arguments, they're pretty interesting. You can read Old Testament and New Testament. You know that the Jews were in Judea, Samaria, and Galilee. And you may know, some of you, that they had the great fortune to be freed from the Babylonian captivity. The Jews are an ancient people, right? They're an ancient people. They go back thousands and thousands of years. They were freed from the Babylonian captivity by Cyrus the Great, an Iranian, a Persian. So we are now seeing Persia being liberated by Israel. That's what I think we are seeing. It might take a while. They did not rebuild the walls of Jerusalem in a blink. It might take a while, but as Cyrus the Great restored the Jews to their promised land and they rebuilt the walls, now it's just ironic, but not the reason we should support Israel. It's just that's the biblical argument. Now, as those of you who are theology literate, and I'm not, part of the reason I'm an evangelical Roman Catholic Presbyterian is because I don't do theology. I'm told they're incompatible, but one river, two banks, I'm good with that. And however, I do know my history. And 3 times, if you read Jews versus Rome, they rebelled against Rome. The Great Revolt was 66 to 70 AD. And we all know, because we're Christians, or most of us are Christians in the room, that the Romans killed Jesus, not the Jews, under the influence of a priestly sect. The Sanhedrin at the time was upset with him, but the Romans killed Jesus, not the Jews. And that's in Josephus. That's all history. But what Josephus is really writing is about the Great Revolt, 66 to 70. What happened to the temple? How many of you have been to Jerusalem? All right, I've only been twice. Both times I've gone to the temple. One time I've been down in the tunnels with John Bolton, his national security advisor. It's the most amazing place on this planet. It is the holiest place on this planet. They will not penetrate. The slabs at the base of the temple are about half the size of this room. I don't know how they ever got them, where they got them, but it's most amazing. And they have dug down the original second temple, not the first temple, obviously, but the second temple. And they have a synagogue outside of the Holy of Holies, where they believe the Holy of Holies. I went down there with John Bolton and a bunch of reporters. Even the very secular left-wing reporters are in awe of this place because they know what is going on here. And they know it's a Holy of Holy place. But that, I'm not arguing they're the chosen people and they should be our ally. I'm arguing that what followed those 3 Jewish revolts became embodied in our law in 1945. And I'll get you there in just a moment. They were scattered after the 3rd revolt. They were destroyed after the 1st revolt, the 66 to 70, and the Romans leveled the temple. Then there was a 2nd revolt out in the diaspora, and the Romans killed a lot of the Jews that they had sent away. But there were still Jews in Judea, Samaria, and Galilee. And then the 3rd revolt, the Bar Kokhba revolt, came in about 132. I believe I got that right, 132 to 136. And after that, the Romans massacred 3/4. They just killed 3/4 of the Jews, and they dispersed the rest of the 4 winds around the world, and thus the diaspora. They went everywhere, and they were everywhere persecuted except one place, here in the United States of America, where they were welcomed, and where they were welcomed by our first president in a way I will refer to in a moment. But they were welcomed in America and only in America. And between the time of the diaspora being dispersed and World War I, there was only a small colony of Jews who lived in and around Jerusalem for all those years. But the Romans were so mad at the Jews after 3 rebellions, they renamed Judea, Samaria, and Galilee into Syria, Palestina. That's where the name Palestine comes from, and that's where the name Syria comes from. The Romans invented Syria, Palestina, and the native people came in after the Jews were dispersed. Well, Between 1850 and World War I, there were hundreds of pogroms. There were always pogroms throughout history, but hundreds of pogroms throughout Europe, primarily in the Russian Pale, when the Cossacks would just kill Jews for sport. That was their idea of a good time. And it was accepted by the Tsar. It was a way of letting off steam of other ethnic minorities. They became the scapegoats of parts of the church, including my Catholic church. They became scapegoats for a long time. They were forced conversion. They've always been persecuted. In 1897, a man stood up named Theodor Herzl, and he said, we need a homeland, because no one will ever protect us. No one will ever take care of us. And America was only getting off the ground. And while a lot of Jews came to America, 1881 to 1920, there's a great museum in Philadelphia called the Museum of Jews in America, and it shows their migration, which begins in 1645, I think, where Portuguese Jews make their way up here. And they come into Charleston, and they come into a couple, but Philadelphia's got this Museum of American Jewry, which I would recommend you go, because by diverse means and paths, Jews came to America because they were safe here. At least they were more safe than they were anywhere else in the world. But in the rest of the world, they were being slaughtered routinely. And so Herzl stood up at the first Zionist Congress in 1897 and said, we will have a homeland. Let's get to work. The Brits threw in with the Balfour Declaration, and they said, right, the Jews need a homeland. Where? And always the Jews said, Jerusalem? We got a tie there, we got some people there. And the world would go back and forth. At one point, the Brits were high on Uganda for the Jews, and that didn't go anywhere. But eventually, they went to the Turks. The Turks ruled Syria, Palestina until World War I. For 400 plus years, the Ottoman Empire ruled it. And they ruled it with a light hand, but it was their land for many hundreds of years. When Herzl and Herzl's colleagues went to the Sultan, said, not on my watch. You're not getting your land back here. And they remained trying to find a homeland. World War I comes along. World War I destroys the Ottoman Empire. Modern Turkey is born. Modern Turkey is a secular state that is now reverting to Islamist, almost Muslim Brotherhood. We'll watch Erdogan very closely in the months ahead. But at that point, all bets are off because the Ottoman Empire has collapsed, and the victorious allies, of which we are one, get together and they establish mandates and the League of Nations. And the League of Nations gave a mandate to the British Empire that they would rule until the League of Nations could figure out what to do. They would rule all that is now Jordan, all that is now Israel, all that is now Gaza, and parts of Syria. And Winston Churchill went over and drew the maps in the aftermath of World War I. The British mandate lasts from the end of World War I until the 1948 Declaration of Independence by Israel. And this is what I want to walk you through, because this is why Americans are obliged by law and the rule of law to support Israel. First Jews arrived in September 1654, 23 Sephardic Jews from Portugal. But when George Washington became president, he got a letter from the Newport congregation. Their synagogue is still there in Newport, Rhode Island, asking, and I'll read you at the end of this what he had to say, asking, can we stay here in this new land of which you are the president? Because it was no longer the British Empire. So they had to kind of get right with the new guy, the new boss. The new boss was Washington. They wrote him a letter. I'll read it to you at the end. Now, after the Ottoman Empire went away, these countries thought there would be the war to end all wars was World War I. They were wrong. World War II came. And the Zionism began in 1897. It continues all the way along, and Jews can't get out of Europe fast enough when they see the Nazis rising. And unfortunately, anti-Semites in the Department of State, anti-Semites in the British Empire would not allow them to leave in the numbers in which they wished to leave, and many of them were caught up in the Holocaust. But I don't want you to make that paramount mistake. Israel was not founded because of the Holocaust. Holocaust was the place that those who survived the Holocaust, Israel was the place that those who survived the Holocaust went to. They went to America or they went to Israel. And it wasn't a paradise. It was not a land of milk and honey. It was a swamp. It had to be purchased. It had to be reclaimed. And the Jews did that. And they came back. Now here's what happened at the United Nations. After World War II, we're going to do it again. We're going to do League of Nations Part 2. We call it United Nations. We ratified, the United States Senate, by virtue of their constitutional authority, ratified the United Nations Charter on July 28, 1945, which makes it part of our law. All right? It is part of our law. Unless we withdraw from the United Nations, we're obliged by those resolutions which are passed by both the General Assembly and the Security Council. There aren't many of those because the Security Council, we have veto. So we just veto things that we don't like. And for a long time, Russia, China, they veto. You know, it's usually a stalemate. You normally don't get stuff out of there. Well, when they got the United Nations together, the first thing they did was take a look at the Middle East and wait, because they knew what the Jews, David Ben-Gurion and the others, were up to. On May 14th, 1948, Israel declared, pursuant to the resolution a year prior in 1947, General Assembly Resolution 181, that they were an independent state. Israel declared its independence in 1948. The day after that, Harry Truman recognized it. So again, the United States government, acting pursuant to its obligation to the United Nations Charter, recognized all the post-war states. They had to go through that process. They had to be approved by the Security Council. They had to be approved by the General Assembly. Israel is a state because of our treaty partners in the United Nations. And when they declared their independence, 5 Arab nations declared war on them, and the first Arab-Israeli war lasted until July of 1949, an armistice. Then we began to have our history as an American ally, not so much an ally, not so much an ally. Truman sent no weapons to Israel when they fought for their life. They were armed by the Russians and the Czechs because they were communists. David Ben-Gurion loved the United States, but he was a communist. And they all were. And any honest Israeli will tell you, we're founded by communists, but we're over that now. We're now capitalists. And that's because they are this amazing tech startup, this incredible laboratory of innovation. After the armistice agreement, things stayed calm until Nasser came along and prepared for a second war to destroy Israel. And the Six-Day War happened in 1967, which I can barely remember because I'm born in 56. I'm 70 years old. The Six-Day War, what happened? I don't know, but they beat everyone again. And in between that, there had been the 1956 Suez Crisis, and boy was Eisenhower mad at Israel at that point, because Israel had gone behind his back to conspire with the French and the Brits to seize the Suez Canal away from Nasser. Ike came down on him like a ton of bricks and said, you're back inside your borders, and they went, because they weren't acting like good allies. They thought, well, there's a lot of argument about what they knew, what the Brits were up to. They had kind of assumed that Anthony Eden had told Eisenhower, but he hadn't, the last gasp of the British Empire. But 1967, America looked up and said, those people can fight. Those people are going to be a good ally. And then it has been an ascendant relationship since then. The reason that we recognize Israel is because the United Nations recognized it. The reason they are our ally is because it is our self-interest. Since 1948, that has become our most important allegiance, and I want to say it survived a lot of trouble. 1973, the Yom Kippur War, which was begun when Egypt and Syria attacked on two sides. Richard Nixon saved Israel, and Golda Meir said the greatest president Israel ever had was Richard Nixon. It's no longer the case. Now it's Donald Trump, the greatest president Israel has ever had. Then, 1982, Lebanon War, we didn't like that so much. Various many wars in the Middle East. It's the Middle East. However, at the same time that Israel was settling in, there began to grow in Persia a malign and very evil influence. Iran is easily the worst regime on the planet. Now, there are ties. There is an alliance of tyrants. Those four tyrants are Putin, Xi Jinping, Khamenei 2.0, and Kim Jong-un 3.0. So they are all in the alliance of tyrants. Three of them are nuclear powers: Russia, China, and North Korea. You have to deal with nuclear powers a different way. Iran wanted to be a nuclear power, but only one of them is a theocracy, right? Russia, Orthodox, communist, who knows? Putin doesn't believe in anything except Putin. China, they're communists. They're atheists. They don't want the church. They persecute the church. Jimmy Lai is in jail tonight. Keep him in your prayers. Solitary confinement. Because Xi Jinping is a dictator. He's also a genocider. They took care of the Uyghur people, and they intended to wipe out the Uyghur people. So the alliance of tyrants do not, however, have eschatological ends. They do not believe in an end times about which they can have anything to do. In this, they are uniquely evil in that they believe their hidden imam will emerge from the well at a time of great destruction and confusion, and that they can accelerate that process. Khomeini distorted Shia Islam terribly, and at the same time, Al-Qaeda was distorting Wahhabism, which had already distorted Sunni Islam. And so these variants, these very extreme, all those are Christians know, we have our cults, we have our sects. We just don't let them usually run the church writ large. Since the country was founded, we have needed allies. Our first ally was France. They allowed us to beat Great Britain. We fought 2 wars with Great Britain in the first 40 years of our life as a nation, of which we are celebrating 250 this summer. And it's a wonderful thing, but for the first 40 years, we were at war pretty much continually with Great Britain. And they were not our ally. After the Second War, won with the Battle of Lake Erie, I might add, in the great state of Ohio, off Put-in Day. So our independence was really secured in Ohio. And Ohio put the first men in flight, the Wright brothers. First man in the orbit, John Glenn. First man to step off the planet, Neil Armstrong. All Buckeyes, just pointing out. Ohio, you would not be here but for us. I just want you to know that. We're also always an abolitionist state, always a free soil state. So the Underground Railroad ended up where my grandparents, all 4 of my grandparents, born, raised, lived, died, buried in Ashtabula, Ohio, terminus of the Underground Railroad. They come up there, get across the lake to Canada, freedom. So it's always been a free soil place. So we're Lincoln people, and we've always been Lincoln people. But after we decided that Great Britain was not going to try and kill us, we slowly became friends, and that alliance grew. And they actually protected us. When we declared the Monroe Doctrine, we didn't have the ability to execute the Monroe Doctrine. The British fleet executed the Monroe Doctrine. Britain ruled the waves until the end of World War II. We were the ascendant power, they were the dominant power, and then we changed the baton in 1945. And they now have a navy that cannot even get 1 ship to the Middle East in a month. They used to rule the waves. They sent the Dragon last week to try and come to their aid of their people in Cyprus where they have a military base. But we need allies all around the world because of this alliance of tyrants. And we've got some great ones. We have frontline states. Poland is an ally, one a great ally. We've got Ukraine is a quasi-ally, and they're going to become a really great ally. We've got Italy is right now on the right side of things. We've got some really great allies around the world. United Kingdom, not so much. France, never quite sure. And it's a crazy thing. After a war, world wars do break spirits and they change cultures, and that culture changed. But the one ally that has done nothing but get better and better and stronger for us is Israel. It is a nuclear power. Right? So if you're in the nuclear club, you're different than everyone else. India and Pakistan are in that club. China, Russia, UK, France. Israel's in that club. France helped them build their nuclear weapons, but they won't admit to it. Oh, no, nuclear weapons, what nuclear weapons? They got 90 nuclear weapons at least. They got submarines that can deliver them. They are a superpower. Number 2, they're an intelligence superpower. So we used to have something called Five Eyes. Those were the English-speaking peoples of the world. After World War II, Canada, the United States, the United Kingdom, New Zealand, and Australia, we would cooperate and share extensively all intelligence. I don't think we can do that anymore. I don't think we can rely on Great Britain not giving away our secrets, but we can rely on Israel. Now, they spy on us, we spy on them. That's what allies do. And if you ever read World War II history, Churchill and FDR, they were not always like on the level with each other about what they were going, because they were, national interest is different from the interests of your allies. So allies does not mean the same country, it just means the most important. They are the equal of any regional power in their immediate expeditionary force. Meaning they can go anywhere and win any fight, any time, conventional, but they're backed up by nuclear weapons. Their tech sector is the equal of ours. So when we send them the F-35, they make it better. So that when they are flying with our F-35s, as they are tonight or this morning, over Iran, they are doing so with a better version of our F-35, and then they give the improvements to us. Moreover, when President Trump talks about Golden Dome, which we must absolutely have in an era of missiles, We will get that technology from the Israelis and improve it because they got that technology from Ronald Reagan's Strategic Defense Initiative and perfected it. So do you see what's going on there? A synergy between free people and capitalist societies exchanging ideas, making money, and protecting each other. They are now fully integrated. We have not had an alliance like this ever of the last 2 weeks, something that you will never see again, probably, because these kind of wars are not available because nuclear powers are involved. They have fully integrated the Israeli military and the United States military, so they are flying together, not in separate theaters, like we did with the Brits. The Brits went to Burma, and we flew over the hump in China, and we did different things in different places. They are now fully integrated into the United States. That is an alliance like nothing we've ever had. Now, what happened? Why did anti-Semitism happen? Because on 10/7, Hamas invaded Israel and slaughtered 1,200 people. I was so proud of CCU when I heard that you had Israel Week here at CCU. So very proud, because not enough Christian institutions have stood up and say, there is an unequivocally evil power in Gaza. It's not the Gazan people, it's Hamas. It's unequivocally evil. It's dedicated to the genocide of the Jewish people and to wipe them off the map. It's in their charter. They don't debate it. They argue it. They embrace it. And on the other side, there's Israel, which suffered that devastating blow, the massacre of 1,200, and then they fought back. They fought back in the most civilized war that's ever been fought. The civilian to combatant ratio is 1-to-1. So if you accept the Hamas death total of 75,000, they've now admitted it's lower than 1-to-1. So that is, in any war, quite remarkable. So Israel is a civilized ally, a strong ally, and an ally about which the highest standards can be obtained. By the way, the people who criticized the Gaza, they said nothing about the Syrian civil war, which saw 656,000 Syrians murdered in the 10 years prior to the Gaza invasion, the invasion from Gaza of Israel. They said nothing about the Sudanese civil war, which is underway right now and is estimated to exceed 150,000 dead in the last 3 years alone. So you see Iran now. What did Iran do in January? Something I have never seen in my 70 years. They murdered 35,000 of their own people in 2 days. That's, you got the Avalanche. I don't know where they play. I'm sure if you pack it out, they haven't got 35,000 people. So if you can imagine mowing down everybody who's at an Avalanche game, that's what Iran did January 8th to 9th. I think that's when President Trump, on my show, said, Iranian people, keep marching for your freedom, help is on the way. Said that repeatedly. Took a long time because we don't want to walk into a fight we can't win. President doesn't believe in fair fights. I'm with him on that. Win with overwhelming force, win quickly, and we are doing so. But what that unleashed was a mental illness in the West. What that unleashed was an anti-Semitism, which just yesterday, okay, so we set this up 6 months ago. Just yesterday, an Islamist attacked a synagogue in West Bloomfield, Michigan. Now, I did go to Michigan Law School. I admit that. I treat Michigan like the Vikings treated London. Go there, get everything worth having, and leave. And so I got my law degree, and I got out of town. But my college roommate was from West Bloomfield, and he was Jewish. He died in college in a tragic Colorado car accident. So all things come back around all things come together. And Rick went to school in West Bloomfield. Family lived there. I became very close to him when I was there. It's a Jewish community. It's so Jewish. But there's an extremist community within the fine patriotic community, which voted, by the way, for Trump, in Dearborn, Arab Americans. There's nothing anti-Arab, anti-Islamophobic about what I'm saying. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying anti-Semitism is the problem, not Islamophobia. Anti-Semitism has become a mind virus that is spiraling out of control, especially among young people who get their information from the web. The web is run by the Alliance of Tyrants. So for every post that a free American posts, there will be 30, 50, 1,000 put out by the Alliance of Tyrants, whether it is Russia's bot farms, China's endless army of technical wizards, whether it's the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps or the Basij. They're constantly polluting, and they're good at it. And they're spreading the mind virus that somehow the Jews are responsible. I want to close this way and talk about what Washington said. There are a grand total in the world of 16 million Jews. Grand total. Maybe 16 and a half. I don't know how they're doing in the population. 16 and a half million. The world has got 8.5 billion people in it. So how is it that these 16 million people have drawn the ire of the Alliance of Tyrants? Well, they represent striving, human excellence, a theology that is coherent and consistent, and a way of life that sets them apart. And some people don't like to be set apart. But here's what Washington wrote to the Hebrew congregation of Newport when they said, "Are we okay in the United States?" He wrote back, "May the children of the stock of Abraham who dwell in this land," the United States of America, "continue to merit and enjoy the goodwill of other inhabitants, while everyone shall sit in safety under his own vine and fig tree, and there shall be none to make him afraid. May the Father of all mercies scatter light and not darkness in our paths, and make us all in our several vocations useful here, and in his own due time and way, everlastingly happy." So what I like to call Colorado Christian University is the lantern of the Rockies. It shines light every day. I am glad to have had this opportunity to shine a little bit of light on why Israel is our best ally and why anti-Semitism is antithetical to Christianity or any worldview that is in fact decent and human. And if you don't trust me, trust George Washington. Thank you very much.
Let's give him a round of applause one more time. That was an amazing expose historically from Professor Hewitt. So,
I didn't go too long either.
You did not. You're right on time. Commercial break, news, weather, sports, and traffic. We're back with more right after this.
Still got it.
So I don't know level of rubric on this. You want to go tough? You want to go quick?
Whatever you are happy with. Because
don't say that.
I'll go anywhere you want to go at any point.
Let me piggyback off of your amazing presentation. So then, quick story. Greg Schaller and I had a rabbi visit campus this week. Came into the president's office and sat down and told us a story. He and his wife and his family went to Beaver Creek, right, Greg? Was it Beaver Creek? Or no, it was Breckenridge. Breck. And they went skiing, and they took their young son with them, 9-year-old son. They were in the resort, stayed in the resort. The son wanted to go swimming, and he simply said to his father, Papa, I want to go swimming. And his father simply said, well, I have your swimsuit, but I don't have your swimming shirt that you like to wear. I have this shirt, and the shirt was the bobsled team, the Olympic team from Israel with the flag and Israel on it. The 9-year-old son simply said, I can't wear that. And his dad said, why can't you wear the shirt into the pool? He goes, I don't want to wear the shirt because I'm fearful that I might get shot. Breckenridge. And so there's a real fear out there. And I'm sad to say, Hugh, and I think all of us are sad to say, in the Conservative Party, there's a part playing into this fear.
There is.
We don't have a William F. Buckley anymore to go around and bang a few heads. What happens with the podcasters, the Carsons, the Owens, the Fuenteses out there? How do we deal with this?
The president stepped into the breach. We don't have a Buckley. We don't have anyone who approaches the stature of Rush. Charlie was that person, and Charlie got taken out. And so the president stepped into the breach, rebuked Tucker, will not let anyone speak ill of the Jews. Of course, his daughter is Jewish, his grandchildren are Jewish, and he is going to defend religious liberty. He is that unlooked for hope, that extraordinary development. You follow politics your whole life and you have no idea. I mean, I really did not think Trump was going to win. And then when he won, I really didn't think he was going to be very good. And then when he lost, I thought he was gone. And then when he came back, I wasn't sure what he would do. And here he is doing exactly what no president has been able to do, take on this most malign of nations and rebuke anti-Semitism. So he's not the most eloquent person. I think you will agree. But he makes up for with repetition what he may lack in delivery. And so that's where we're going to win the anti-Semitism battle.
You know, whenever he gives a speech, it's like it's a third-party story. It's like, I met Tom, and Tom said, Tom really likes you, and you should think the way Tom thinks. I think the way Tom thinks, and so think like Tom. You know, it's this third-party equivocation. But raising the level from the podcasters, what about the professionals? I mean, Kevin Roberts is a friend of mine. Kevin's been in the president's office here on campus, Heritage Foundation. We're going to honor Ed Fulner coming up at the Western Conservative Summit with the Armstrong Legacy Award. And Kevin's in a tough spot right now. Heritage is in a tough spot. And yet it's almost like they're afraid to say, hey, we stepped in it, let's back up and run after this again.
Kevin is a dear friend, and I think he's doing great things with Heritage. And what happened with the video is what I imagine you might be tempted to do if I stepped in it, which is rise to the defense of your friend. And so I've always given him grace because he rose to the defense of a friend, and he did concede it was ill-timed and ill-advised. And those who want to punish heritage for reasons unrelated to that are doing so. Some people want to punish heritage because of Project 2024. Yeah, 2024. And some people want to punish heritage because they make more money than other people. But their board is solid. They will renew. Kevin is a man of great faith and patience, and they will not make the same mistake twice.
This is exactly what we would do in Salem, but on a phone call, right?
Yep.
So we would do this back and forth and convince each other and argue and be disagreeable without being tremendously disagreeable. Except for Dennis. Dennis would be very
Actually, he
disagreeable.
wouldn't yield the microphone.
Exactly.
Yeah,
We'd have an hour phone call and he'd do 50 minutes and we couldn't get word in elsewhere. Different topic, and we'll do a couple of high-level topics here. So war in Iran. What is the end game? What do you think the end game is? I mean, regime change, 6 to 8 months. I'm just tossing out possibilities here. What would be the best case scenario for our military, for the Iranian people, for the end of the regime? Your thoughts there?
Best case scenario is if the Artesh, which is their regular army, splits with the the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. After the revolution of '79, when they took our hostages, Khomeini set up the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, for the purposes of safeguarding the revolution, and he kept the army, the Artesh. The Artesh is different from the IRGC. They have separate bases, separate generals. Now, their top command structure is very much anti-American. But right below that are colonels. Coups come from colonels. And those of you who raise your hand because you're veterans, you know that most coups, Colonel Gaddafi was a colonel. Most coups come, Hugo Chavez in Venezuela was a colonel. They're not generals. Colonels decide, I don't want to die. And they march, as the Wagner group marched on Putin, but they stopped. So the very best result is regime change brought about by the people of Iran, represented by a strong man who will transition, hopefully, I would think, with the symbolic assistance of the Crown Prince. Reza Shah Pahlavi has been on my program as recently as a month ago, and he's prepared to do whatever is necessary. He's been in the country since 1979, but the diaspora will rally to him. There's a lot of Persian talent in America, a lot of Persian wealth. Like Cuba, when Cuba falls, the Cuban Americans are not going to stay in America and leave their money here. They're going to put their money into Cuba and reclaim their land, and there won't be retribution. There will be some justice in Iran, but the best end game is that. A strong man emerges from the Artesh who leads to a transition back to democracy over a period of years. What we see in Venezuela right now, Trump does not want chaos. I think the president is correct in not wanting chaos. We do not want to arm the Kurds. We don't want the Baluchs. We don't want the Azeris. They've got, the Persians are only 52 to 55% of Iranian population. So they are almost a majority-minority country. So we don't want a civil war. Civil wars, you end up with Lebanon. So we want an orderly transition. That's best case. What is an acceptable case? The destruction of Iran's ability to threaten its neighbors and the United States with nuclear weapons, or the means to deny us the opportunity to take out those nuclear weapons. That is already achieved. And so I think we've already won. We are winning decisively, but we have not yet seen a decisive win.
So it's worth the gas prices.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean,
this is not the Battle of the Atlantic. Those of you, we had a professor of history here earlier. The Battle of the Atlantic from 1939 to 1941, the Nazis were taking out the shipping that was keeping England alive, the food, the fuel, everything that they needed was coming in by ship, and they were sinking 1 out of 2, 1 out of 3. That's the battle of, this is not the Battle of the Atlantic. This is $1 a gallon. And it's inconvenient, and it hurts, and it's not what we want. It's not fair. It hurts the Chinese more than it hurts us. Hurts the Asian countries more than it hurts us. But we will, as I heard John Cochran, great economist from Stanford, say yesterday, substitutionary effects is a doctrine invented by Adam Smith 250 years ago. We will produce more oil. We will drive down the price of oil. We will make up for it. And it's uncomfortable, even if the cost is losing the midterms, and I'm not an optimist about the midterms. It is well worth it if we can reduce Iran to a shadow that never even thinks about doing what they've done for the last 47 years.
Let's get you to elections. You brought it up, midterms, your comments.
I think we're going to lose the House for sure, and that's simply because of the tidal waves. Mike Johnson, Speaker Johnson, was in my neck of the woods in California 2 nights ago. adamant, we're going to win. We're going to win. We have the money. They do have the money. They have a great money advantage. We have the candidates. We have the maps. We're going to win. We're going to win. We're going to win. And I look at the title chart of American politics, which is you don't win the 6th year of an 8-year presidency. In fact, you get crushed. George H.W. Bush said we got whomped. And the only person who even wins an off term is George W. Bush after 9/11. But you lose the House. Reagan lost the House. But the key is the Senate, because if we do lose the Senate, we will not get another judge. Not one confirmed. They're radical. Chuck Schumer's radical. Democrats have lost the center left. I know there are Democrats here. You don't have to leave. It's not the party you grew up with, but I am hopeful that we can hang on to the Senate. But it would be good if the war were over by June, and if the economy was back clicking along at 3% growth by then.
So thinking of elections, Trump in his 6th year, maybe some tough times coming up, presidential candidates. Vance, Ohio guy, we would like that.
Yep.
Young, some weaknesses, and then Rubio, out of nowhere. I mean, just speech in Europe, maturation, skills of statesmanship. So Vance, Rubio, who's the leader right now?
I want to do that debate. I've moderated 5 Republican debates, and I've gotten to do that by never saying who I would prefer over who.
Okay.
But I will tell you their strengths and their weaknesses, and actually President Hogue just did. The vice president has been in public office 3 years, and Richard Nixon was, before he ran for president, in public office 11 years. So the experience level goes up with each year. You learn more, you see more, and right now he's seeing, in the last 14 months, the world has changed. Venezuela, Cuba, Iran. He's learning, and he's very smart. I moderated the debate for our friends down at the Center for Christian Virtue in Columbus, Aaron Baer, and Aaron had 6 candidates, Bernie Moreno, J.D. Vance, Jane Timken, you name it, they were running, Matt Dolan, and I moderated that, and he's just smart, and that helps. Marco Rubio is as smart, if not quicker and more eloquent. Marco, Eric can tell you this from his days in the studio, there are 2 kinds of guests in the studio. Those you immediately recognize, you got to be careful what you ask them or you'll embarrass them because they won't have a clue what you're talking about. And those you can ask anything to, and they'll have at least a decent answer, and they'll probably impress you. Secretary Rubio is off the charts eloquent. He is as eloquent as Ronald Reagan, and to the extent that you can give someone a compliment, that's it.
What's it like doing a debate? I mean, you've done 4?
5.
5?
Yeah.
So CNN, MSNBC, who else?
4 with CNN, 1 with NBC.
Okay.
And what it's like is like being dropped onto a different planet. And they attempt to overwhelm you because the deal was the Republican National Committee said, you can have the debate, makes money for the networks, a lot of money for the networks, 20 million people are watching, but you have to have one of us. And the us turned out to be me because Salem nominated me. And then we kept clicking. It worked well. Jake Tapper, Dana Bash, Wolf Blitzer, and I, and we did trios, 3s. And then you just have to stand up for what you believe in because they cannot make you ask a question. They, however, are very good at knowing what are stupid questions. So I had a lot of stupid questions, but they had a lot of stupid questions. And I don't think NBC would mind me telling you we had 12 dress rehearsals for the debate in Florida in December of 2023. And December 2023, November, we're in Miami. 2 weeks, Ritz-Carlton, work for the networks if you can. That's not what we got. And the first question, the guy said, well, I think you ought to ask about the minimum wage. And I said, what? I said, we got 5 people, Vivek, Ron DeSantis, Nikki Haley, Tim Scott, I'm forgetting someone who I'll regret forgetting, but I didn't mean, Governor Christie. And Trump blew it off. He said, I don't need to do the debates, and he was right. And got absolute killer political instinct, And I said, there's not one person on the stage that wants the minimum wage. We're not going to waste time on the minimum wage. No. And they said, but you're trying to appeal to the working class, so they should want to ask about the minimum wage. I said, no, they're all against it. So they are an alien invading force under the Republican scene. There are no Republicans in the legacy media, like none. And so when you arrive there, and whoever comes to take my place, I doubt I'll get asked this time. There are younger people who are coming up, Guy Benson, and lots of Ben Domenech, who's on the show today, lots of people in the podcasting world. that are
Anderson Cooper. Sorry.
Anderson Cooper, no. He's gone now. He got fired by 60 Minutes, or he left 60 Minutes. I don't know. Barry Weiss will produce some good people. It's about time to pass the baton. And I am a big believer in passing the baton before the baton is passed on you, before they take it away from you. So it's it's the most fun to do and the most fun to be done. Because the hurdle for a moderator is there should not be a story about you afterwards. Now, do I have time to tell one Trump story?
Sure, yeah, please.
All right. I asked President Trump in the first debate in Las Vegas in 2015, which part of the nuclear triad it was actually at the Reagan Library, first debate, second debate in the order of first for me. Which part of the nuclear triad would you strengthen first, because we can't afford to do all of them? It had not occurred to me that he would not know what the nuclear triad was, and he did not know, so he spoke extemporaneously for 90 seconds and didn't make a lot of sense. And the person in my ear, what they can do, they can't tell you what to ask, but they can tell you to whom to direct it, because the rule in a debate is the big dog can only have 2x the amount of time as the little dog. So in that case, the little dog was Carly Fiorina. So if she had 10 minutes, Trump could only have 20 on camera. So the president went for 90 seconds, and then I went to Secretary Rubio for the follow-up, and he gave a little civics lesson. Well, the nuclear triad consists of the submarines and the airplanes and the missiles. And we need to have all three because the balance. It's a little seminar. Jeb Bush comes up to me 2 years later in Central Park. He said, "Why didn't you give me the follow-up, Hewitt? I'd have killed him." And I said, sorry, it's not my fault, Jeb. And anyway, the president was not happy with that question because he was embarrassed by that question. So I had friends in Trump 1, National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien, Mike Pompeo, the Secretary of State. Every time they would see me, and it was fairly often, they said, "Well, your name came up again," because whenever I meet the press, Monday morning quarterbacking was the president talking about the Sunday shows. So, "Oh, that Hewitt, he tried to blank me in the debate with that triad, but he's better now." Okay, so better now. He stood up for me. It's all very transactional, like Eric said. So after the election, the day after the election, I wrote a column in the Washington Post. Said Trump lost. I wrote the book on election fraud. You cannot overcome losing 4 states by more than 10,000 votes. It's an impossibility. Can't be done. And Jared heard that. And Jared was looking for people whom the president, at least, if he didn't respect them, he wouldn't hit them. And said, "Come over to the White House. I want to talk about presidential library." So I went, false pretenses. And then Jared said, "Let's go see the president." I said, "No, I'm not. What about? I'm not. No, you don't go to see the president." "That's right. That's what I said." I cried. "I'm not going. I was a baby." Well, we went down to the office. He's yelling at the top of his lungs at someone. And Jared said, "Let's come back." And so we left and we went down the hallway and we talked a little bit about presidential library. He said, "Let's go see the president." I said, "Jared, I've got nothing to talk to him." He said, "Come on." What Jared wanted me to do was to get the 3 questions. And I'm not going to talk about what we talked about. But when we walked in, Mark Meadows, Chief of Staff, is on the right, President's behind the Resolute desk, and there are 2 chairs. Jared's behind me. And Jared says, "Mr. President, Hugh Hewitt's here, and he'd like to talk about the nuclear triad." And all 4 of us broke out laughing because we all knew what the story was on the nuclear triad. So the question that CNN did not want asked, they did not want the triad question asked. And Jeff Zucker, until I went on the stage, he was trying to talk me out of it. He said, "Nope, I'm asking the triad question." It was the question that made the debate.
I have been looking forward to this time, but it is late into the evening for Hugh. I have 4 pages, 42 questions.
Oh,
We will
you're not
do that.
prepared
Yeah,
at all.
Not prepared at all. I have talking point memos and everything. So, but it's been a long day. If you
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah. Why don't you write it down first?
No.
Okay.
Here's my question. To what extent do you want Colorado Christian University to be a participant in politics in Colorado and the nation? Because that's a mission statement thing.
So I believe full on, Hugh. I mean, it's the DNA of the university. It's a part of our Centennial Institute. I think our conservative ideology is placed in every classroom on campus. And like you, as a Christian, if we're going to be in the marketplace and be a light, a winsome evangelical light, or a light in a dark place, you got to be in politics.
Yep.
And you have to lead, and you have to have a voice. And it doesn't mean you have to bang pots and pans to be noticed, and we don't do that. But if we can make an intellectual argument, one that is grounded upon history like you did tonight, and makes sense and is one that is winsome and powerful at the same time. I want every one of our graduates in the middle of the town square making those arguments like all 6 that were on your show today.
Oh, they were fabulous.
Yeah.
They were fabulous. We had 6 graduates on the program today, and they're doing all sorts of stuff. They're all over the place. There are lawyers, and there are activists, and there are public policy people, and I just thought, this is great. This is why there's a tree grows in Brooklyn. And so Colorado is not lost if Colorado Christian University. So thank you for supporting it. Keep coming to the centennial events and keep supporting the university.
Well, I know it's been late. People do want to greet your hand, but I have one final thing I want to do. There are privileges when you're,
You bet.
when you're
You're the
president,
boss.
right? And so I can do certain things in the capacity, and one of them is to offer a proclamation to you from me to you as president of CCU. And so with that, Jamie, would you come forward? I want to offer my good friend Hugh Hewitt a proclamation from the office of the president. And Jamie has a word to say ahead of time, and then she'd like to, and I would love to have her read what the proclamation states.
All right, thank you so much, President Hogue. Before I read our proclamation for this evening, I was one of those high school students back in summer of 2014, and I studied under Hugh Hewitt during the Young Conservatives Leadership Conference ahead of the Western Conservative Summit, and that week was transformative for me, and that is the reason why I ended up studying at Colorado Christian University. And that was also resulting in, as a freshman, taking his con law class, Faith, Freedom, and the First Amendment. Maybe not the best decision as a first semester freshman year, but I wasn't expecting to read all 4 volumes of Winston Churchill's History of the English-Speaking Peoples in the first month. But it was by far the most engaging and impactful class I took at CCU. So thank you so much for your participation at CCU. And with that, whereas Hugh Hewitt is a distinguished author, attorney, professor, and nationally syndicated radio host whose work has shaped public discourse, journalism, law, and culture for decades. And whereas Mr. Hewitt previously served as a professor at Colorado Christian University, where he invested in students through teaching, mentorship, and a commitment to intellectual excellence, leaving a lasting impact on the academic and spiritual formation of the CCU community. And whereas, through his lifelong dedication to thoughtful dialogue, principled leadership, and the pursuit of truth, Mr. Hewitt has modeled the integration of faith, learning, and public engagement. And whereas his career reflects a deep respect for free expression, civil discourse, and the importance of moral clarity, values that align with the mission of Colorado Christian University to educate, equip, and inspire students to lead with wisdom, courage, and integrity. And whereas his return to campus is both a homecoming and a meaningful opportunity for students, faculty, and staff to learn from his experience, insights, and enduring commitment to excellence. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the president of Colorado Christian University does hereby welcome Hugh Hewitt back to campus and extends sincere gratitude for his contributions to education, media, and public life. Be it further proclaimed that this day, March 13th, 2026, shall be recognized as Hugh Hewitt Day at Colorado Christian University.
Oh, that is wild.
Look at a picture of it.
All right. Hugh Hewitt Day.
There you go. Ready?
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, my friend.
Hugh Hewitt Day. Well, I've been the warden of the Collegiate Pigs, but I've never been to Hugh Hewitt Day before.
go.
It's good to have friends in high places.
It is wonderful. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give him a round of applause.
Thank you very much.
Have a great night. Thank you.
Good night, you all.